Blythe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show's 29-year-old Texas resident Jason Blythe was seen on the Capitol grounds. He was wearing a helmet. He had on soft body armor under his clothes, which I'll explain how we know that in a minute. But, the typical peaceful tourist fare, the typical peaceful tourist outfit, right? So Blythe was among the first group to approach and breach the police line and the barricades at Peace Circle. He even took a photo of the police standing behind those barricades with the huge area closed signs posted on them in bright all capital letters. A while after taking that picture, some of Blythe's co-defendants started getting aggressive. So I've talked about a couple of them over the last couple of weeks. They grabbed the barricades. They started violently shaking these barricades back and forth. And that is when Blythe jumped in. He got between two of his other co-defendants. At the time, he didn't know them, but he got between two of these other men, and he grabbed onto the barricade, and he and the others then picked the barricade up off the ground, and they charged with this barricade, charged at the police with it. So that's how one officer, Officer Edwards, Caroline Edwards, who I've mentioned before, she got slammed in the face with this barricade, with these gates, and it flung her backwards. So she ended up cracking her head first on the stair railing, and then she fell and her head hit the concrete. So she wound up with a concussion. She, to this day, has migraine headaches. And Blythe was standing in front of another officer. So he wasn't directly in front of Officer Edwards. He was in front of an officer named Cruz. So he, with the gate, pushed Cruz all the way back until he hit his back on the metal handrail. And then right after that, one of Blythe's co-defendants jumped over the barricade. I mentioned him, I think it was last week. He started attacking Officer Cruz, and then other officers jumped in. They tried to intervene to get him off of Officer Cruz. So Blythe and another man jumped into the mix. It was just this big brawl, just a big mess. So eventually, one officer started punching one of the men, and so they were able to get Officer Cruz away from Trump's terrorists. But the barricades were down at that point. So the mob just completely overwhelmed the few officers that were at that location. They ran towards the Capitol. Blythe was then seen on the media tower, the one that had been erected for Joe Biden's inauguration. He stood up there. He was taking photos and videos of all the chaos below. And then he was seen waving a Gadsden flag and somewhere along the way he picked it up because he didn't have it initially. Later, and for at least 3.5 hours, Blythe was seen on the West Plaza and also the Lower West Terrace and the Upper West Terrace. So he kept moving between those points. At one point, Blythe and others were on top of a raised concrete area, and the police were trying to get them down. And so when the police tried to remove a woman from this raised area, Blythe grabbed the woman around her torso, and he tried to prevent them from pulling her off of there. So then an officer tried to grab Blythe by his jacket to get him off, and Blythe swatted the officer's hand away. The officer then reached towards Blythe again, and then Blythe dropped to the ground to resist removal. Eventually, the officer managed to move Blythe towards other officers, and then all of them subdued Blythe as he was fighting against them. So that's when Blythe's jacket got lifted up so you could see he was wearing the body armor. Sometime after that, Blythe left the Capitol grounds. The next day, he texted someone pictures of his bruises on his legs and his arm, but Blythe told the person that the bruises were from, quote, rubber bullets from a concussion grenade. Okay. And then he also said that the police, quote, manhandled people in the crowd. He didn't, of course, say that he was one who got manhandled, but Blythe did tell this person that, quote, 2 cops got arrested by the crowd, so the score was even. So Blythe was arrested on January 24th of 2022, and in a 4th superseding indictment, he was charged with civil disorder, 2 counts of assaulting officers with a dangerous weapon, entering restricted grounds with a dangerous weapon, disorderly conduct on restricted grounds with a dangerous weapon, disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, physical violence on restricted grounds with a dangerous weapon, physical violence on Capitol grounds, and obstructing an official proceeding. So Blythe refused a plea deal, and along with his co-defendants, he opted for a bench trial. So in February of 2024, the judge found Blythe guilty of civil disorder, 1 count of assaulting officers with a dangerous weapon, and physical violence on Capitol grounds. So just based on the felony assault conviction alone, Blythe was looking at up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. The prosecutor actually requested a substantial sentence. They asked for 9 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. And surprisingly, Blythe has no criminal history. Well, until now. He now does, but up until then, he had no criminal history. U.S. District Judge Gia Cobb presided over Blythe's case, and at the sentencing hearing, she told him, quote, "Not in my lifetime have I seen a situation where the peaceful transfer of power was threatened like it was on January 6th. Actually, she said that to all of, him and his co-defendants, because they were all sentenced at the same time. She also expressed concern over what might happen in this year's election or after this year's election. And she said the, quote, "temperature remains too high." In the end, Blythe was sentenced to only 30 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So pretty damn weak. 2.5 years when the prosecutor asked for 9 years. Considering that he took part in the tip of the spear attack and contributed to the very serious injury of Officer Edwards, like I said, which she is still feeling the repercussions of that to this day. And as I've said before, Judge Cobb, by far, the weakest January 6th judge of all. Even Trump-appointed judges impose tougher penalties than she does. And she is a Biden appointee. So there you go. Good news is Blythe definitely will not be voting for Trump this year. And he now has 2 felonies on his record. So, the next judge, if he encounters another judge, might not be so weak. So anyway, if I hear any more, I will let you know. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.